Alright, we usually wouldn't talk about, things like this, but it's slow in the NBA world right now, right? And so the Phoenix Suns just made a move that I think tells us the way they think about their future, right? Dillon Brooks reportedly agreed to a 3-year, $73 million extension with Phoenix. On the surface, you might look at that and say, okay, Phoenix kept Dillon Brooks, yada, yada, yada. But I don't think it's just about Dillon Brooks. Because when you look at the money Phoenix is committing, when you look at the timeline of this contract, and most importantly, when you look at Devin Booker, I think the Suns are starting to tell us exactly what the next era of this franchise is supposed to be and supposed to look like. And it raises a huge question. Are the Suns building another contender around Devin Booker, or they're just trying to keep Devin Booker alive and happy? First, we have to give Dillon Brooks some credit, right? Because his reputation around the NBA has changed dramatically. I mean, there was a point where, Brooks was almost treated like a meme, right? People talked more about him like trash talking LeBron than they talked about his actual basketball skills. But Phoenix got something extremely valuable from Brooks, right? They got an identity. This team needed somebody like him. I mean, after KD left, after Chris Paul left, they were just in the waters, right? I mean, the previous version of Phoenix was loaded with offensive talent. The Devin Booker, the Kevin Durant, the Bradley Beal was even there. But despite all of that talent, there were times where the Suns team just didn't feel intimidating, right? You saw all those names and you just, they got KD. They got Devin Booker. They got Bradley Beal. They didn't have that nasty defensive identity. They didn't have that guy who was willing to pick up somebody 94 feet, get into somebody's chest, and make the game uncomfortable, right? That's what Dillon Brooks brought. And then he gave Phoenix offense on top of that. I mean, he averaged a career high 20 points per game last season. Now, do I expect Brooks to suddenly become a 20-point scorer every year? Probably not. But that's not why you're paying Dillon Brooks. First of all, you're paying him because if Brooks can give you somewhere around 15 to 18 points while defending one of the opponent's best perimeter players every night, that's an extremely valuable player next to Devin Booker. And that's where things get interesting, right? Because, Phoenix has made its decision. Devin Booker is still the franchise. Everything else has changed. Kevin Durant is gone. Bradley Beal is gone. The super team experiment is over. But yet still standing is Devin Booker, right? And now Phoenix has Brooks locked into essentially the same long-term window. That's important because I don't think Phoenix is treating Brooks like some temporary piece while they figure out what happens next. The Phoenix Suns are saying you're part of the core with Booker. And basketball-wise, I understand why. Because if you're building around Booker, you don't necessarily need another player who wants to dominate the ball every possession. You never needed a guy like KD. You never needed a guy like Bradley Beal. You saw what was successful next to Devin Booker when you had Chris Paul. And so you need players who complement him. You need defenders. You need physicality. You need size. You need players willing to do the dirty work. And Dillon Brooks checks a lot of those boxes. Booker can handle a lot of the offensive responsibility. Brooks can take difficult perimeter defensive assignments, and that allows Booker to conserve more energy for what Felix actually needs him to do, and that's score and create offense for others. That's a much cleaner basketball fit than some of the previous Suns rosters that we've saw. And this might be the biggest takeaway. The Suns are trying to recreate the Durant, Beal, Booker experiment. They're trying to do something different. Instead of saying, let's put 3 massive offensive stars together and overwhelm everyone with talent, they're trying to build an actual roster around Devin Booker. Dillon Brooks represents that philosophy perfectly, right? He's not Kevin Durant, but he's not supposed to be. He's a complementary piece. And Phoenix now has other pieces around Booker that can potentially develop into something bigger. Jalen Green gives them another explosive scorer. They've added more size and youth. They've tried to replenish the roster after spending years operating like every season was championship or bust. And that's why Brooks' extension matters. Phoenix is pretty much saying, we're done constantly blowing everything up. We want continuity. We want an identity. And we want to see whether we could build something sustainable around Devin Booker. But there is an other side to this, right? Because Dillon Brooks is getting roughly $24 million per season on this extension. And that's reasonable for a high-level starting wing in today's NBA. But these contracts are adding up because Devin Booker is already making his superstar money. Phoenix has other veterans they got to pay. They have young players they'll eventually have to make decisions on. And once you start committing significant money to multiple players, your flexibility starts disappearing. That's where Phoenix has to be careful, because Dillon Brooks is a great complementary player, but if you're paying a complementary player significant money, those players have to complement an actual championship level core. I'm sorry, I probably butchered that, not gonna lie. But otherwise, you can become expensive without becoming elite, right? That's the line Phoenix is walking. And that brings us right back to Booker. I mean, can Booker still be the number one option on a championship team? Because ultimately, none of these moves even matter if the answer to that question is no. We've already seen Devin Booker get extremely close. I mean, Phoenix went to the finals in 2021. Booker has had a monster playoff performance. We've seen him look like one of the best offensive players in basketball when he's actually rolling, right? So I don't question whether Devin Booker is good enough to be a superstar. The question is whether Phoenix can put the right combination of people around him. Because there's a difference between being a superstar and being the centerpiece of a championship roster. Booker needs somebody else who can consistently create offense when defenses load up against him. He needs defenders around him. He needs size. And most importantly, Phoenix needs young talent that can outperform their contracts. That's how championship teams are normally built. You have your expensive stars, but then you find players giving you $20 million worth of production while making $8 million. Or rookies contributing immediately. Or young players developing into legitimate starters. Phoenix cannot simply buy its way out of every problem anymore. But as far as Booker's future, and this is where this deal becomes, kind of fascinating, because if I'm Devin Booker, I'm looking at this extension as another indicator that Phoenix is not rebuilding. They're retooling. That's a huge difference, right? That makes me happy. A rebuilding team probably looks at Dillon Brooks and says, he's 30 years old. Maybe we should trade him for some draft capital, right? Phoenix did the opposite. They paid him. That tells Booker, we're trying to compete during your prime. And that's important because Booker has spent his entire career in Phoenix. The Suns obviously don't want to reach a situation where Booker looks around and thinks, what exactly are we doing here? Extending Booker gives Phoenix another established player that Booker can trust going into important games. But, I mean, at the same time, this cannot be the final move because Dillon Brooks isn't the second superstar. He's not your number 2 guy. He's not the guy who's going to transform Phoenix into a championship favorite. He's a piece, a really useful piece, but still just a piece. Phoenix needs to land somebody bigger, right? Or they need one of their players to step up. Maybe that's Jalen Green. Maybe one of their young players develop faster than expected, right? Maybe eventually they make another major trade. But if Phoenix reaches the next couple of seasons and Brooks is still clearly the second or third most important player behind Booker, I'm not sure that's enough to win the Western Conference. I'm not even sure that's enough for, I don't know, maybe a top 6-7 seed. They might be in the play-in. But I mean, eventually, the Suns are betting on culture at this point. And there's another part of this that doesn't show up on the stat sheet. Dillon Brooks gives Phoenix personality, edge. He's annoying, he's physical, he talks, he irritates opponents. And you know what? Good teams need guys like that. If you look throughout NBA history, championship teams usually have somebody willing to be disliked. Dennis Rodman, Draymond Green, Metta World Peace. Players who bring a emotional edge that their superstar doesn't necessarily have to provide. Booker can focus on being Booker. Brooks can be the villain. And I think Felix likes that dynamic. They aren't just paying for points. They're paying for what Brooks has done to the personality of the team. But as far as Phoenix goes, to me, the Dillon Brooks extensions tells us like 3 things, right? Number 1, Phoenix believes Devin Booker championship window is still open. If they thought this thing was finished, extending a veteran Brooks wouldn't make much sense. Number 2, the Suns are prioritizing roster construction over superstar collecting. Instead of constantly chasing another big name, Phoenix appears to be trying to surround Booker with players who actually complement him. And then number 3, the clock is officially ticking because now you're committing real money to this core. Booker is locked in, Brooks is locked in. Phoenix is establishing the players it believes can be part of this era. Eventually, potential isn't enough. They have to win. So do I like the Dillon Brooks extension? Yeah, I kind of do because, 3 years, $73 million is not some outrageous contract considering what two-way wings get paid in today's NBA, right? Brooks gives Phoenix defense, he gives him toughness, secondary scoring, and most importantly, he fits next to Devin Booker. But I don't want to look at this move and say the Suns are contenders now. I look at it and say Phoenix has established another piece of the puzzle. Now we have to see whether they can find the piece that changes everything. because Devin Booker is entering the portion of his career where every season starts carrying even more weight. I mean, he's already been to the finals. He's already been All-NBA. He's already established himself as one of the greatest players in Suns history. What's missing is a championship. And Phoenix just spent $73 million keeping Dillon Brooks to help him chase that dream. So now the pressure shifts back to the front office, because keeping Brooks was the easy part. I mean, you just extended him. Building a roster good enough to keep Devin Booker believing in Phoenix, that's the real challenge. And the next couple of years might determine whether Devin Booker eventually retires as the greatest Phoenix Suns ever, or whether we eventually have a conversation nobody in Phoenix wants to have. What if Devin Booker decides his best chance to win a championship is somewhere else?